in the conclusion to your essay, you say that the path forward will require a significant sacrifice of wealth, dominance, or comfort met with a sober assessment of the full array of our actual problems. Do you see signs that governments, as we have formulated them since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, can play a productive role in that process?
Um, in theory, yes. Um, I think everyone who engages in politics or political theory seriously, who has an understanding of systemic understanding of economics and politics and these sorts of things, understands that one of the purposes of government is to limit and redistribute power. Power is a good thing in that without power, we can't do anything. We talk about the power of flight, the power of speech, and so on. Power is using language, or excuse me, it's using energy to do things, right? And so it's good. We need power, but it's always possible to have too much of a good thing. We need rainfall, but if you get too much rainfall, you got a flood, right? Well, same thing with power. If you have too much power in societies and it gets too concentrated, then things go very bad. And even on a big scale, can humanity have too much power over the natural world? Well, I would argue yes. And climate change, species extinctions, global toxification, these are symptoms of one species, ours, having temporarily too much power, more power than it can use for its own good. So government theoretically has the role of reining in overuse of power, whether it's too much economic inequality, whether it's regulating toxic chemicals, whether it's regulating greenhouse gas emissions. A competent government in our situation would be doing all of these things on a much greater scale than is currently happening. But we've gone so far because fossil fuels have given us so much power so fast, we've been able to increase the scale of human energy usage, the scale of our societies, the size of our population, the size of our economy, so far and so fast that if we were going to avert the polycrisis, we would actually have to change direction and reduce our reliance on chemicals, reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by reducing our energy usage. And we have a profit-driven society with a debt overhang. And so if we try to make that course correction, it will actually create as many problems, or over the short term, it will create problems that will seem as serious as climate change and all the rest. And so nobody wants to do that. Realistically, I don't think governments have the power to, because we've just gone too far. There's going to be a correction, but it's not going to be driven by policy. It's going to be driven by events essentially out of policymakers' control. Does that mean policymakers have no usefulness anymore? They can't influence things at all? Of course they can. The direction of change is going to shift, and that won't be as a result of policy. It will be as a result of breakdown in systems, natural systems and human systems. But how that breakdown is managed still matters a lot. If societies decomplexify, which would be the Joseph Tainter way of looking at it, if they simplify over the course of the next few decades in a chaotic and completely uncontrolled way, things could get very, very bad. I mean, global war over what's left, collapsing ecosystems, et cetera, massive human mortality and suffering. It doesn't have to be that way. It's still possible to manage this change of direction in a way that minimizes human suffering and the destruction of the natural world. But it will require policymakers to exercise a lot of courage and judgment that so far they've been unwilling to bring to the table. I know this is it's a challenging conclusion to come to, and folks who just want to have hope for the future, hope that we can continue living the way we are now, or that things will even be better. They hear a talk like this and they go running for the exits. But there have to be some adults in the room who see that this is where we've come to, this is where we're going, and if we're going to avert the worst, it's going to take some courage and compassion and some realism, some willingness to face some unpleasant truths.